Hello, my name is Rufus and I'll be reading from Coraline by Neil Gaiman. Coraline discovered the door a little while after they moved into the house. It was a very old house. It had an attic under the roof and a cellar under the ground, and an overgrown garden with huge trees in it. Coraline's family didn't own all of the house. It was too big for that. Instead, they owned part of it. There were other people who lived in the old house. Miss Spink and Miss Forcible lived in the flat below Coraline's, on the ground floor. They were both old and round, and they lived in their flat with a number of ageing Highland Terriers who had names like Hamish and Andrew and Jock. Once upon a time, Miss Spink and Miss Forcible had been actresses, as Miss Spink told Coraline the first time she met her. "You see, Caroline," Miss Spink said, getting Coraline's name wrong, "both myself and Miss Forcible were famous actresses in our time. We trod the boards, lovey. Oh, don't let Hamish eat the fruitcake or he'll be all night with his tummy." "It's Coraline, not Caroline, Coraline," said Coraline. In the flat above Coraline's, under the roof, was a crazy old man with a big moustache. He told Coraline that he was training a mouse circus. He wouldn't let anyone see it. "One day, little Caroline, when they're all ready, everyone in the whole world will see the wonders of my mouse circus. You ask me why you cannot see it now. Is that what you've asked me?" "No," said Coraline quietly. "I asked you not to call me Caroline. It's Coraline. The reason you cannot see the mouse circus," said the man upstairs, "is that the mice are not yet ready and rehearsed. Also, they refuse to play the songs I have written for them. All the songs I have written for the mice go oompa, oompa. But all the white mice only play toodle-oodle, like that. I'm thinking of trying them on different types of cheese."
My name is Isaac and I'm going to be reading A Wizard of Earthsea. The island of Gaunt, a single mountain that lifts its peaks a mile above the storm-racked northeast sea, is a land famous for wizards. From the towns in its highest valleys and the ports on its dark, narrow bays, many a Gauntish man has gone forth to serve the lords of the archipelago in their cities as wizard or mage, or, looking for adventure, to wander working magic from isle to isle of all Earthsea. Of these, some say the greatest, and surely the greatest voyager, was the man called Sparrowhawk, who in his day became both Dragon Lord and Archmage. His life is told of in the Deed of Ged and in many songs, but this is a tale of the time before his fame, before these songs were made. He was born in a lonely village called Ten Elders, high on the mountains at the head of the Northwood Vale. Below the village, the pastures and ploughlands of the vale slope downward, level below level, towards the sea, and other towns lie on the bends of the River Are. Above the village, only forest rises behind ridge to the stone and snow of the heights. The name he bore as a child, Dunny, was given him by his mother, and that and his life were all she could give him, for she died before he was a year old. His father, the bronzesmith of the village, was a grim, unspeakable man, and since Dunny's 6 brothers were older than him by many years, they went one by one from home to farm the land or sail the sea to work. As smith in other towns of the Northwood Vale, there was no one to bring the child up in tenderness. He grew wild, a thriving weed, a tall, quick boy, loud and proud and full of temper. With the other few children of the village, he herded goats as the steep meadows above the river springs, and when he was strong enough to push and pull the long bellow sleeves, his father made him work as a smith's boy, at a high cost in blows and wipings. There was not much work to get done out of Dunny. He was always off and away, roaming deep in the forest, swimming in the pools of the River Are, that like a Gauntish river ran very cold and quick, or ran by cliff and scarp to the heights of the forest, from which he could see the sea, the broad northern ocean where, past Perigal, no islands are. A sister of his dead mother lived in the village. She had done what was needed for him as a baby, but she had business of her own, and once he could look after himself, At all she paid no more heed of him. But one day when the boy was 7 years old, untaught and knowing nothing of the arts, of powders, and that are in the world, he heard his aunt crying out words to a goat, which had jumped up on the thatch of a hut and would not come down, but it came jumping, and he cried a certain rhythm to it.
Hello, my name is Freddie, and I'll be reading The Unraveller by Frances Hardinge. If you must travel to the country of Radith, then be prepared. Bring a mosquito net for the lowlands, and a warm coat for the hills or mountains. If you mean to visit the misty marsh woods known as the wilds, you will need stout, waterproof boots. You will also need wits, courage and luck, but some things can't be packed. When your ship arrives at the great Mizzleport harbour, remember to trade your gold currency for Radith's ugly steel coins. Don't be offended when the customs folk peer at you through lenses set in hollow stones, or sweep you with iron-fibred brushes. There are reasons for caution where the land meets the sea. Ignore the hustlers on the docks, who will try to sell you anti-curse amulets. You have, of course, heard that some people in Radith are able to curse their enemies. It sounded so picturesque when you were reading about it at home, like a fairy tale. As you listen to the peddlers' blood-curdling warnings, however, you may start to feel nervous. You shouldn't really waste money on a so-called protective amulet, but you probably will. The hustlers may also try to sell you and the other tourists bundled parchments that they claim are maps of the wilds. The wilds cannot be truly mapped. Buy one anyway, just in case. As you walk through Mizzleport, you'll soon realise that none of the locals wear anti-curse amulets. Your landlord at the inn will gently mock you for buying one. If you ask him how you should protect yourself, however, he will shrug and offer no useful suggestions. You can't defend yourself from a curse, he'll tell you. But don't worry, curses are rare. Only those consumed by hatred are able to curse. Just make sure nobody hates you while you're here. The other locals at the inn will be happy to answer some of your questions. Do curses really exist? Yes. Can curses really set someone on fire, steal their shadow, or turn them into a swarm of bees? Yes. Is it true that the power to curse comes from spiders? No. The little brothers are not spiders, however much they look like them.
Hello, I'm Albie. I'll be reading Boy Like Me by Simon James Green. They say ignorance is bliss, and right at this moment, 8 AM on a sunny Monday morning in 1994, this ignorant kid was blissfully happy and blissfully unaware that in just 12 hours' time, something would happen, the first domino would fall, leading to a safe little world being blown wide apart. In narrative structure, that's what we call a hook. But let's leave that dangling and focus back on the present. Location: my cul-de-sac in the town of Market Wickby, Lincolnshire. Welcome to the middle of nowhere. If you do die of boredom, please try not to cause a scene. Our hero? Me. I've always hated writing myself into stories in a way that feels autobiographical, mainly because it would lead to awkward conversations with my mother. So we'll call our guy Jamie Hampton, okay? 16, an intelligent and sensitive boy, not my words, my school report, although I wouldn't disagree. Average height, slim build, according to my mum, handsome. I've always disliked thinking about my appearance, so you decide. Besides, attractiveness is more than just the physical, as I was soon to discover. That was the callback to the hook, just to tease you, but come on, focus on me for now. I was a bit too bright to be seen as cool, a bit too popular to be accepted by the nerds, very much in the middle of the social pecking order, and that was an okay place to be. Accepted enough that I got invited to most of the parties, even if I wasn't on the top of anyone's list, but never having to worry about falling out of favour with the A-listers, because I wasn't part of their group anyway. Only one problem. Being in the middle wasn't really what the Cambridge were looking for. The Cambridge? What am I talking about? Wasn't really what Cambridge were looking for in their applicants, so I had my heart set on making more of a splash. Little did I know quite how much of one I would be making by the end of summer term. Nice bit of foreshadowing there for you. I hope you enjoy all the literary devices in the opening chapter. What else? Oh, and dressed in my new rugby top. More on that shortly. Action. I'm walking down the pavement on my way to school. I'm smiling, a bounce in my step. A bit too happy for a normal 16-year-old. I probably should have been more tortured, more into Camus and Nietzsche. But I don't know, maybe. But I don't know, maybe. I've always been... Oh, hold on. But I don't know, maybe I've always had an unnaturally high serotonin level. Soundtrack, What's Up by 4 Non-Blondes. Chiefly because that's what my clock radio was playing when it woke me up, and I couldn't get it out of my head. Honestly, life was pretty good.
My name is Arthur, and I'll be reading Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. It was a nice day. All the days have been nice. There had been rather more than 7 of them so far, and the rain hadn't been vented yet. But the clouds massing off the east of Eden suggested that the first thunderstorm was on its way, and it was going to be a big one. The angel of the eastern gate put his wings over his head to shield himself from the first drops. "I'm sorry," he said politely. "What was it you were saying?" "I said that one went down like a lead balloon," said the serpent. "Oh yes," said the angel, whose name was Aziraphale. "I thought it was a bit of an overreaction, to be honest," said the serpent. "I mean, first offence and everything. I can't see what's so bad about knowing the difference between good and evil, anyway." "It must be bad," reasoned Aziraphale, slightly concerned tones of one who can't see it either and is worrying about it. "Otherwise you wouldn't have been involved." "They just said, get up there and make some trouble," said the serpent, whose name was Crawley, although he was thinking of changing it now. Crawley, he decided, was not him. "Yes, but you're a demon. I'm not sure if it's actually possible for you to do good," said Aziraphale. "It's down to your basic, nature. Nothing personal, you understand. You've got to admit it is a bit of a pantomime." "Though," said Crawley. "I mean, pointing at the first tree and saying, 'Don't touch,' in big letters. Not very subtle, is it? I mean, why not put it on the top of a high mountain a long way off? Makes you wonder what he's really planning." "Best not to speculate, really," said Aziraphale. "You can't second-guess ineffability, I always say. There's right and there's wrong. If you do wrong when you're told to do right, then you deserve to be punished." They sat in the embarrassed silence, watching the raindrops bruise the first flowers. Eventually Crawley said, "Don't you have a flaming sword?" Said the angel. A guilty expression passed across his face, and then came back and camped there. "You did, didn't you?" said Crawley. "Flamed like anything." Well, looked very impressive, I thought." "Yes, but, lost it, have you?" "Oh no, not exactly lost, more, Aziraphale looked wretched. "If you must know," he said a trifle testily, "I gave it away."
Hi, my name's Elliot, and I'm going to be reading an extract from Optimus Die First. The first time I saw the Bionic Man, I was covered in sparkles. It was a typical Friday afternoon at Youth Art Therapy, YART for short. I was trying to help Ivan the Terrible with our lamest project. As per usual, Ivan refused to focus. Instead, he tipped a tube of rainbow glitter onto my head, all over my cat tat, and all over me. Alonzo tutted sympathetically. Kula snorted with laughter. Another sunny day in paradise. We were sitting in the common area of the counselling suite. It was always either Antarctica cold or Saudi Arabia hot. Even though it was early January, I'd stripped down to my tie-dyed tank top. Ivan started punching my bare arm with the fingers that had, moments ago, been wedged up his nose. I reached into my tote bag for my bottle of hand sanitizer, just as one of the counsellor's doors opened. Ivan glanced up. "Petulia, look," he said, "a giant." The Bionic Man was not a giant, but he was well over 6 feet. Everything about him was supersized. A bright orange parka was slung over one arm, which was major overkill for a Vancouver winter. He looked about my age, with a mass of curly brown hair and big brown eyes that were red from crying. The Bionic Man had stepped out of Carol Polachuk's office. I sat in that solar space many times myself, forced to talk to she of the Up With Life t-shirts, bulgy eyes, and condescending attitude. Carol was very good at one thing, and that was making you feel worse. So I wasn't surprised to see that the Bionic Man looked disorientated, and angry, and deeply, terribly sad. I recognised those looks. The Bionic Man hadn't been in there for a chat about career options. You didn't see Carol Polachuk for the small stuff. He was one of us. For a brief moment, our eyes locked. Then he made a beeline for the doors, and he immediately left my brain pan as I started slavering myself in hand sanitizer. The end. Except it wasn't.